The phone was an alien object in my hand. It vibrated with a number I hadn't seen in 7 years, but one I'd memorized as a child. Home. The word felt like a fossil in my mind, brittle and belonging to another age. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. The silence between us had become a living entity, a third party in any non-existent conversation. But some stubborn, wounded part of me, the part that still remembered baking cookies with my mother, picked up. Alara? Her voice was the same, a cultured, melodic tone that could effortlessly switch from lullaby to lashing. Now it was strained, thick with a grief I didn't believe for a second. Mother. My own voice was flat, a stark contrast. I was in my small, plant-filled apartment, the evening sun casting long shadows across the drafting table where I made my living. My world was one of clean lines and calculated structures. This call was a chaotic, unwelcome splash of color. It's your grandfather. She paused, and I could almost hear her composing herself, arranging her features into the appropriate mask of sorrow. He passed away last night, peacefully, in his sleep. The air left my lungs. The world tilted. I gripped the edge of the table, the polished wood cool and real under my palm. Peacefully, in his sleep. The lie was so profound it was almost funny. There was nothing peaceful about the rasping, ragged breaths I had counted for hours in that sterile hospice room. There was no sleep, only a final, hard-won surrender. I know, I said, the words quiet and sharp, a beat of stunned silence. You know? I was there. I let the statement hang, a grenade with the pin already pulled. I've been there every day for the past 3 months. Where were you? The silence on the other end was a void. I could picture her in the grand living room of the family estate, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows my father always said were a testament to our transparency. The hypocrisy was a physical taste in my mouth. Ilara, we had no idea, she finally said, her voice regaining its practiced composure. He never told us he was ill. We would have been there. Another lie. The doctor's calls had gone unanswered. The emails had bounced back, unread. They had built a fortress of their own importance and left the old man outside the walls. Only I, the disowned, the exile, had been deemed worthy of his final days. The funeral is on Friday, she continued, her tone shifting, becoming businesslike. At the family plot. You should be there. He would have wanted it. He would have wanted you there, I thought, a bitter ache spreading through my chest. He asked for you, in the beginning. He called out for his son, but you never came. I'll be there, I said, and hung up before she could say another word. I sank into my chair, the memory of last night washing over me. The smell of antiseptic and fading life, the paper-thin coolness of his hand in mine. His eyes, the same stormy gray as mine, had been lucid to the end. They'll come crawling now, Lara, he'd whispered, his voice a dry leaf rustle. The vultures, don't let them take it. It's yours. You're the only one who remembers what really matters. I had squeezed his hand, tears I'd been holding back finally spilling over. I know, Grandpa. I promise. He'd given a weak, almost imperceptible nod. My fierce girl. You were always my favorite. And then he was gone. The steady, relentless beep of the heart monitor a brutal full stop to his story. I was alone, just as I had been for years. But now I was armed with a promise and a final, devastating truth from the only person in my family who had ever truly seen me. The cemetery was a landscape of manicured grief. Old money slept beneath ornate headstones, their names worn smooth by weather and time. I stood apart, a solitary figure in a simple black dress, watching my family assemble. There was my father, Alistair, his shoulders squared with the burden of his own importance, his jaw tight. My mother, Eleanor, a vision in tailored black, dabbing at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. And my older brother, Julian, already looking bored, checking his phone when he thought no one was looking. They were a portrait of a perfect, grieving family. The canvas was a lie. I had been disowned at 22. The reason was simple, and in the grand scheme of their world, trivial. I had refused the politically advantageous marriage they had arranged to the son of a business rival. I had chosen my own path, my own career, my own life. My father had said words that were seared into my soul. If you walk away from this, Alara, you walk away from this family. You are no daughter of mine. For 7 years, I had built a life from the rubble of their rejection. I became an architect, finding solace in structures that stood firm, whose foundations were based on logic and strength, not shifting sands of social climbing. And through it all, there was Grandpa Arthur. He'd been the one to secretly pay my tuition, to send encouraging letters, to meet me for clandestine lunches, where he'd grip my hand and say, "You have more spine than the whole lot of them combined." He was the secret keeper of my soul. The service was a hollow pantomime. The priest spoke of a devoted family man, and I saw Julian suppress a smirk. As the casket was lowered, my mother finally approached me. Her eyes scanned me, taking in my simple dress, my lack of jewelry, my unadorned life. "Alara," she said, her voice low, "it's good you came, despite everything." "Where else would I be?" I replied, my gaze fixed on the hole in the ground. I was the only one who said goodbye. Her composure cracked for a fraction of a second. A flash of irritation, of panic. "We didn't know. You have to believe that." "I don't have to do anything, Mother." My father joined her, his presence a cold shadow. "This isn't the time or place for your theatrics, Alara. Show some respect." I turned to face him fully. I'm respecting the man who actually cared enough to have me by his side when he died, something you couldn't be bothered to do. His face flushed a dangerous red. Julian sauntered over, the mediator. "Come on, little sister. Let's not make a scene. We're all grieving." "Are you?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "What exactly are you grieving, Julian? The end of his golf lessons? The fact that he won't be around to fund your latest failed venture?" His smug mask slipped, revealing the petulant boy underneath. "You always did think you were better than us." "No," I said, turning my back on them and walking towards my old, dependable car. "I just learned the difference between being family and being related. The reading of the will is tomorrow at 10. I assume I'll see you all there." The shock that radiated from them was a palpable force. They hadn't known I was informed. They hadn't known I was invited. The game had already begun, and they were 3 moves behind. The lawyer's office was all dark wood and leather, smelling of old paper and money. Mr. Thorne, a man who had been Grandpa Arthur's friend and confidant for 50 years, sat behind a massive desk, a single thick document before him. My family swept in, taking up the large leather couch, a united front. I sat in a single chair to the side, an island unto myself. The air was thick with their unspoken anticipation. They were already spending the money, planning their expansions, their vindication. Mr. Thorne cleared his throat, his eyes kind and intelligent, meeting mine for a brief, reassuring moment before he began. "We are here to read the last will and testament of Arthur Alistair Pembroke," he intoned. There were the usual small bequests, donations to his favorite charities, a trust for the groundskeeper at his country house. My family shifted impatiently. Then came the core of it. "I, Arthur Alistair Pembroke, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath the entirety of my remaining estate, including all financial holdings, real property, and business interests, to my granddaughter, Alara Marie Pembroke." The silence was absolute. It was the kind of silence that rings, that presses in on the eardrums. Then, chaos erupted. "What?" my father roared, surging to his feet. "That's impossible! This is a mistake!" "She manipulated him," my mother cried, her face a mask of genuine horror. "He was ill. He wasn't in his right mind." Julian just stared at me, his mouth agape, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred dawning in his eyes. Mr. Thorne waited for the storm to subside. The will has been thoroughly vetted. It was drafted 6 months ago and witnessed by myself and 2 partners. Mr. Pembroke was of perfectly sound mind. His wishes are clear. She can't handle this, my father spat, pointing a trembling finger at me. She's a dreamer, an artist. She has no head for business, for the responsibility of this fortune. She'll run it into the ground within a year. This is an insult to his legacy. I had remained silent throughout, letting their true colors blaze forth. But now, at the accusation that I would tarnish Grandpa's legacy, I felt a cold, clear calm settle over me. This was the moment, the promise. I slowly stood up, smoothing my skirt. I looked at each of them in turn, my father's fury, my mother's desperation, my brother's venom. I saw them with a clarity that was both heartbreaking and liberating. They weren't a family mourning a loss. They were shareholders who had just been voted off the board. I looked my father dead in the eye, my voice low, steady, and laced with a lifetime of disappointment. "You lose," I said, the words simple and final. He blinked, confused. "What did you say to me?" "You get nothing." I picked up my purse from the chair. The copy of the will Mr. Thorne had slid towards me already inside. My father sputtered, his face purpling. "Now you listen to me, young lady." I gave him a small, cold smile, the ghost of my grandfather's own defiant smirk on my lips. "Good day, sir." And I turned, and I walked out of the office. I didn't look back. The sound of their stunned, impotent rage was nothing but noise fading behind me. The door clicked shut, and in its echo, I heard the sound of a lock turning on a cage I had lived in for far too long. I was free. I was alone. And for the first time in years, the silence felt like my own.